Alexander Borkovic. Boy, this Lions defense has done its part to try to keep them in this game.
I've wanted to make an Alexander Borkovic video for a very long time, but it kind of got stuck in development hell. But now we have a higher production level, I can finally make a video that does his game justice. It's important to mention that he has now left the Prague Lions and has joined the Székesfehérvár team out in Hungary. And he's joining fellow Serbian Goran Zek, and we'll get into what makes that special and why that's important for his development later. But first of all, we need to know what is Alexander's game built around now. Now, as I mentioned before in this channel, the first thing I'm looking at when I'm a scout is the measurables of the player. 6 foot tall, 207 pounds at the safety position. Alexander is a thicker built safety. Like, he looks more like the 210, 215 type. He is built a little bit bulkier than some safeties, and that shows because he plays so much in the box. Pretty much exclusively in the box. You are never really going to see him playing in a single high, playing as part of a cover 4. He is a cover 3 linebacker, but he's the one coming inside to make the plays on the tackles, and that's a very important part of his game, is what happens inside this box area. And Alexander is a very, very strong tackler, and there's multiple reasons for this, and the first is his motor. He is always around the ball, and I would expect this to be part of it when he is in the Fehérvár team as well, constantly around the ball carrier. Even after the play, you can see him come over to the ball carrier, make sure that he's a presence in that box. And it also has to do a lot with his alignment, because he is coming into that nickel outside linebacker position that we mentioned earlier. He is never really that far back, so he's able to contain the edges within the Prague Lions' old scheme. He's also a very fundamentally sound tackler. He'll take risks, sometimes he'll just go in with a shoulder and it won't be the most effective tackling technique, but in general he has clamps for hands that defenders very rarely are able to shake off. And he's also able to deliver a bit of a boom when he needs to. Like I said, he's a little bit bigger built, a little bit more of that prototype nickel player. That's honestly what I have him graded more as, is a nickel rather than a true safety. But this comes into his tackling technique, and it's exactly what you need at the position. I would argue he's probably the best tackling nickel that we have in Europe. That he is anticipation when it comes to reading screens and reading offensive linemen in front of him, recognizing screens, is a big part of why he's so good at tackling and why he actually has a good amount of tackles for losses as well. His run game impact is severely underappreciated. And these tackling numbers are very important. He was only one of 8 players in 2024 to have 100 tackles. Interestingly enough, one of them being his new teammate János Szalai. So you expect those tackling numbers to come down. He can focus more on his coverage. Now, we'll get into his coverage a little bit later, but his ball playing ability I do think is severely underrated. He is able to bat down deflections. He has had some very impressive interceptions this season that I think some people just tend to ignore. Like, he picked off Vienna in a great play. He picked off Jacob Sullivan as well, and these are 2 very impressive players, both of which all-star quarterbacks in Europe, and he was able to make the play on them. I think that's important. He also got the game-winning interception for Prague's first win. So all of these combine to make a good ball-playing player, and I think that's a very underappreciated and underrated part of his performance in these games. Now, his coverage, I mentioned it earlier, I alluded to it. It is fine. At moments, he is aggressive with his hands. He's able to bully these smaller receivers with his physicality, and he is big enough to handle with tight ends or maybe some bigger body receivers when they come into the slot. But he does not have elite hips, in particular with these speedy receivers, or maybe if a running back, he has to cover one of those. He does struggle with sharp route runners and burst to the ball. And by burst to the ball, I mean sometimes he'll cross his feet in coverage. He's not able to get the best T-step, or he's not able to get full explosion out of his brakes and his trigger towards the football. This has been a factor, especially with someone like Bias Kuyunda, who he was playing a lot in Berlin. You see with these whip routes, he was just kind of getting lost a little bit in those secondary parts of the routes. As soon as it gets past after 5 yards and he doesn't have hands on the player, his hips are not loose enough and fluid enough to hang with the very best. Now, my last point is not criticism of Alexander, it's more of a question, is how he is going to develop this offseason and if he can elevate to that top elite level. You look within conference, that conference is not really built for a nickel and safety like Alexander. You got a lot of speed, a lot of great route runners, which is two things that he has struggled with in the past. Willie Patterson, Brees Horn, Noah Torre, DJ Stewart, Kasper Zylewski, Radim Kalius, Joseph Janota. Like, it just keeps going on and on and on. This is not a conference built for him, but I think that's what he can learn from Goran Zek. Goran Zek has the most interceptions in ELF history. It's tied with him and Amari. One of the best ball-playing players we have seen in Europe. Great player. Also a former All-Star, 3-time All-Star. Before he retired, it has now come back. So he's never been in the ELF without being an All-Star. And that ball-playing ability, if it translates to Alexander's game in the middle of the park, could be huge. He's only 25, and I think this could be the biggest part of his development that we've seen in ELF so far, if he can absorb the information that he's getting from someone like Goran Zek. I'm really looking forward to it. Like, I think he could be monstrous. And if he's able to put it all together, man, it could be an all-star level season. Like, you've got the tackling numbers, you've got a good ball-playing player, you elevate that to a great ball-playing player who can sharpen up some of his footwork, and fuck me, you've got a problem on your hands if you're one of these other teams. That being said, thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a great one, long awaited. Alexander's been on my ass about it. Just posted the schedule up recently, so I'm trying to be more accountable for the content I'm making. I want to make a ton of evaluations over the next couple months because it's the content I enjoy making. I want to live stream, I want to make content. I really want to push forward and try and make more stuff for you guys. Now I've got a fucking professional camera and second monitor, and my monitor, I've got ring lights and everything going on. So the least I can do is give back to the community. Thank you very much for supporting. See you next time. See you for ELF Live, Silent Center on my Instagram, posting a lot of graphics. Got so many ideas for that. Thank you again. See you soon. Goodbye.